Well, I think to ransom is maybe a bit too far. There are many issues to be concerned about, and I think he has been addressing those issues to the very last minute. And I guess the positive side is Mr. Thiele is an entrepreneur, and I think an entrepreneur fights for his company. He stands up, has an opinion, and you may say maybe we have too few of them these days. There should be more people out there standing up and fighting for their position.
Let me just interject to that, though. These are not normal times. We're talking about the welfare of 138,000 people at Lufthansa, and we're talking about government money. This is public funds. This is the taxpayers' money that will effectively save his stake in Lufthansa alongside everybody else's. Surely he has a duty of care to those staff and to the government.
Well, I guess you're absolutely right, but I do not think that he was fighting against the money. What he was fighting for is maybe a different approach to governance. If you imagine that the German government is not just giving money, but taking a stake in a company, I think we all think about the Berlin airport, the BER. The government may be a good owner, but definitely not a good director or manager. So if they get involved, you have a very peculiar situation. Corporate governance rules meet public corporate governance rules. And I guess that is something we are fighting for. We should get away from this one-size-fits-all, tick-the-box rules and get down to rules that really meet the company's needs in a very specific situation. And I guess that is also something I would assume that Mr. Thiele had in mind, that if the government becomes a shareholder, we should have a very particular set of rules how the company is managed. So how do you defend public interest and on the other hand be an entrepreneur? And for that you need freedom and space to move. So this is a conflict, and I think you have to discuss, you have to argue, and you have to convince people. And maybe while we are all looking at the money side of it, in the background they have agreed on something we'll only find out later on. And I hope it's a good news then.
Part of the problem is, though, at the moment, that what we're seeing with these entrepreneurs in many senses is that they're willing to privatise the profits and they're very happy to socialise the losses. And right now it's the public purse that is taking the pain here, and there are a lot of entrepreneurs with their hands out. Is there a broader problem with the misalignment of what's important within the German corporate culture at the moment? And maybe I can bring you onto the Wirecard story at this point. Where was the supervisory board in making sure that that 1.9 billion euros actually existed and was being accounted for appropriately on the books?
That is a good question. We have been asking us that question over and over again. I guess what you see with Wirecard, it's a disaster. It's a complete failure of everybody involved. And if someone has to take the blame, I guess it's the supervisory board. I think down the road, they are the ones in charge, and they have to take responsibility. And well, I must personally say that you see too little of them these days. They should be in the front line and explaining people what's going on. So yes, I guess we have rules in Germany as far as corporate governance is concerned. And if you understand corporate governance as a set of written, unwritten rules of a company that make clear how the decision process works in that company, if there is a check and balances, how that does work. And now it looks like we completely missed the case. And why is that? We praise ourselves of having a high standard corporate governance code, and the latest version just came into place a couple of months ago. And for that, they have taken about 3 years to work on it. Has that changed anything? No. And I think that's why we have been arguing for many years that not necessarily against the code, but we need something new. We need something different. We need something that is more communication and dialogue driven, where I think based on principle, a company has to explain to its stakeholders, and that is by far more than just explaining to its shareholders, where it's heading, what kind of principle it's following, and what goals it's setting, and how it wants to reach those goals, and what it has accomplished over a certain period of time, etc., etc. So I think this is modern corporate governance, and with the rules presently in place, I feel we're still back in the last century, and for that we need a drastic change.